na serikali kuu.
Agreement itself acknowledges that no public participation was conducted prior to the signing yesterday, a violation of the Constitution that is too egregious to ignore. To then provide in the same agreement that it would be subjected to public participation after the fact is not only disrespectful to the people of Nairobi, but the clearest indication that it is anything but what we are being told it is. What's worse, the agreement is meant to take effect within 14 days, and one wonders whether any meaningful public participation can be had in such a short period. The agreement in clause 6.2, in fact, states anticipates the outcome of the proposed public participation, limiting it to amendments and forgetting that the people in their righteous might have the option of rejecting the whole agreement in total during that public participation. Secondly, the steering committee established to oversee the agreement is very national government heavy. Of the 12 members of the committee, a whopping 2/3 are appointees of the national government. From its structure, the governor will play subservient to the prime cabinet secretary, making Sakaja effectively the new deputy governor of the county of Nairobi. This, to me, is not cooperation, but a takeover. Thirdly, just last week, the governor of Nairobi City County, Johnson Sakaja, in his address to the County Assembly of Nairobi, derided what he termed the NMS experiment that left us with a Kenya shillings 16 billion hole in pending bills and vowing to never engage in similar misadventure. I wish to remind Governor Sakaja that the Senate in fact directed that those NMS pending bills were the responsibility of State House, from where he was speaking yesterday, since the accounting officer for NMS was the comptroller. He should have used the opportunity yesterday to remind the president that thousands of contractors and workers are still owed money by State House and their livelihoods remain in peril as Ruto continues to ignore them. This agreement is a blatant continuation of the NMS model and with it, the culture of unpaid bills, weak audit systems, and unbridled corruption. Fourthly, it is in the public knowledge that the national government owes Nairobians over 100 billion shillings in unpaid rates and other payables from national government institutions. Ruto throwing around the figure of 80 billion as a symbol of his generosity to the people of Nairobi is nothing but a ruse. Fifthly, the national government continues to hold on to functions that are solidly county functions under the 4th schedule of the Constitution. For instance, the Constitution recognizes only 2 levels of roads, and that is national trunk roads and county roads. Kenyans must note that national government agencies like Kura and Kera continue to insist on doing roads in Nairobi when they clearly need to hand over those roads and the attendant resources to the county government of Nairobi. In fact, the late Baba Raila Amolo Odinga repeatedly called for the disbandment of these 2 agencies, going so far as including the full unbundling of the functions in the MOU he signed with President Ruto in March of 2025. Ruto continues to not only ignore that MOU, but to actively violate it as demonstrated by the so-called cooperation agreement. In addition, there exist constitutional and legal ways to channel funds to specific counties in recognition of their unique needs and status. These include additional allocations and conditional grants. Examples of these grants include grants to counties to construct headquarters and industrial parks. By the way, you should know Nairobi doesn't receive any of those funds, but other counties receive. If indeed we needed national government to build a world-class market at Gikomba, we can channel resources to the county government of Nairobi to build that world-class market through similar instruments. Lastly, it is my considered view that arrangements such as NMS and the proposed cooperation agreement unnecessarily obfuscate and complicate oversight and accountability processes by the assemblies, the Senate, and the Office of the Auditor General. The President at every turn dismisses concerns raised by both the people and their representatives as noise. He asked those with alternative ideas to give those ideas. Mr. President, I have said before that it is possible to govern and achieve development within the confines of the law, and I want to demonstrate this today. Here is what I would have done. Number 1, direct that all national government agencies that owe monies to the people of Nairobi immediately clear their obligations, which are in excess of Kenya shillings 100 billion, and let the County Assembly of Nairobi ring-fence those monies towards development projects, including roads, markets, drainage, garbage collection, and the payment of pending bills. By the way, Nairobi still holds the highest amount of pending bills, over 100 billion shillings, so that if we were paid the 100 billion shillings that the national government owes us, we can clear those pending bills. Number 2, immediately transfer all county functions to counties in accordance with the Constitution and the MOU that you signed with Raila Odinga, dissolve Kura and Kera as per his advice, and channel all their budgets to the Nairobi County government to do our roads. Number 3, utilize existing legal instruments such as Kara and conditional grants to channel additional funds to Nairobi for streetlights and markets, noting the unique security needs of the capital county. 4, direct Treasury to honor the disbursement schedule passed by the Senate that legally requires them to transmit county shareable revenue by 15th of every month. You have heard us in the Senate complain of frequent delays, and the Council of Governors as well, frequent delays in disbursement of the shareable revenue, which is part of the problems, the causes of the problems in the counties. And you have heard that a state institution such as State House has already expended its entire budget 4 to 3 months before the end of the financial year. Yet, county governments are behind 3 to 4 months in terms of receipt of their allocation. So you see, Mr. President, it is possible to remain faithful to your oath of office. We want development, but only if undertaken in strict accordance with the Constitution. This is, in fact, is the very foundation of leadership. I want to take this opportunity to urge both parties, my Governor Sakaja and the President, to shelve this agreement in the public interest and maintain fidelity to the Constitution through those ways that I have suggested to them. I thank you. This is my statement. I will take questions, if any. Yes.
Yes, and my name is from KBC. Given that you have talked about the legal breaches following that particular collaboration, could we be seeing you moving to court or taking any legal action?
Yes, the agreement is expressed to take effect within 14 days. Now, I have publicly called on them to explore legal and constitutional means to be able to achieve all the things that they wanted to achieve in that agreement. If it is not possible for them to consider this request by the Senate of the People, we will use all available means, legal and otherwise, to be able to enforce adherence to the Constitution, including through our Senate committees. And this matter will find itself in the floor of the Senate very soon, as you will see.
You talked about the audit and oversight.
Absolutely.
Of the 80 billion. We saw what happened with NMS. If this cooperation or collaboration goes on, will be oversight in this area?
That is the question. That is a very fantastic question, and that is what I have said in the statement here, that it actually complicates the audit process. Do we call this committee to the Public Accounts Committee? When the Auditor General goes to do her audit at the county government, and she's told, oh, some of the documents are at National Treasury, the others are sijui where, it becomes very difficult for her to do her job. And that is why we are saying, let us maintain fidelity to the Constitution. There are ways to channel monies. For instance, I've given you the example of county aggregation parks. Nairobi does not get any money for building of an aggregation park. If you ask the governor himself, he will say his priority is a market at Gikomba. Why can't we use the same instrument to give us money to do the market at Gikomba? So that is what we are saying. It actually complicates the audit process and the oversight process. Yes.
My name is Omaro from West TV.
Yes.
Senator, is it enough to tell the President and the Governor to shelve that agreement now that they are working backwards, signing and then going for public participation? What is the likely scenario for them to happen so that we can...
I don't know if you have come in late, because we have addressed the question of public participation. We have said it is, you know, to make a mockery of the public, for you to do something, then you say you're going to do public participation on it. It means that you've already made up your mind and that you're going to do an exercise that is cosmetic. Number 2, they have said the agreement takes force in within 14 days from yesterday. That tells you that we have under 13 days to be able to complete that public participation. I've also pointed out to you that if you read at the agreement at clause 6.2, they are saying any amendments that will arise from the public participation will be included. They are not anticipating a scenario where the people of Nairobi say we are rejecting the entire thing, you know. So, and there are other clauses in the document itself that say the parties can enter into supplemental, agreements without the participation of the people. So we are saying shelve this thing, go through a proper process. There are legal mechanisms for you to channel money if the need of Nairobi, for instance, has been identified as unique, just the way the other counties receive money for unique purposes like building of headquarters and building of county aggregation parks. We can be given a conditional grant to do our street lighting in Nairobi and retain fidelity to the constitution.
Chris,
yes.
From Ramogi TV.
Yes, Chris.
During the signing of that cooperation agreement or cooperation deal between the Nairobi County and the national government, the president and the governor said that Nairobi need to be given special treatment akin to what happens in other cities like London, as opposed to what is happening now when they are being given allocation just like any other county. Do you feel like Nairobi needs that special treatment? Chris,
I thought you were in the room when we began this statement. Just go through the statement I have given, that the Urban Areas and Cities Act was passed in 2012. William Ruto was deputy president. In fact, they called him a co-president in 2013. They, together with Uhuru Kenyatta, were given the responsibility by Kenyans to be the first administration to be able to implement this constitution. So we are wondering, how has he suddenly become clever and noticed that there is a law called the Urban Areas and Cities Act? It requires that you give Nairobi support, yes. But we are saying there are constitutional means for you to channel this support, as I've given you the examples of the conditional grants and the additional allocation. What is not clear about that?
Do you think it was a mistake?
Na bila shaka baadaye tutakufahamisha mengi tu ambayo yatakuwa yamejiri katika